Hare Krishna. Radha Mohan ki jai, Shri Sita Ram Krishna Hanuman ki jai, Shri Gavatari ki jai, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīmad-Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Parivashanavim ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirye Shautam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidurnoti Suhasatam Nashtaprayasha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. So today we'll be covering Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 6th canto, chapter 3. Yamarāja instructs his messengers. So in the previous chapter, the history of the life of Ajamil and how Ajamil was delivered by the Vishnu Dutas, which was covered in 6th canto, chapter 1 and chapter 2. It is bewildering, right? Means Yamarāja's order is always maintained, and in this case, Ajamil called out Lord's name because that was the name of his son, who was very dear to him. His name was Narayan. So he called out his son's name, and just by calling the Lord's name, without any offenses. So we also covered the 10 offenses from Padma Puran, and also it's an offense to chant inattentively. So he did chant with attention, with affection, calling out for his son, and that's why he was blessed. And as I was discussing with some senior devotees, they were revealing that, this calling out of the name of Narayan and Ajamil was actually cursed in his previous life, that he could fall down in the next life, even though Mala and Brahmana. So that was his. But then Lord always protects his devotees. So, unknowingly there was a fall down in his previous birth. But here he was. So we'll be covering, because Parikshit Maharaj has this doubt. So he'll inquire in this chapter today. So Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 6th canto, 3rd chapter, 1st verse. Shri Rajo Vacha Nishamya Devaha Swabhata Upavarnitam Pratyaha Kim Tan Api Dharmarāja Evam Hata Agya Vihatan Murare Nadeshika Yasya Vashe Jana Ayam Nishamya Deva Sabhato Pavarnitam Pratyaha Kintan Api Dharmarāja Evam Hitagyo Vihatan Murare Naideshike Vyasya Vashe Januvayam. Shri Raja Uvacha. The king said, Nishamya, after hearing Deva, Lord Yamarāja, Sobhata, of his own servants. Upavarnitam, the statements. Pratyaha, replied. Kim, what? Tan, unto them. Api, also. Dharmaraja, Yamarāja, the superintendent of death and the judge of religious and irreligious activities. Judgment of religious and irreligious activities. Evam, thus, Hatha Agyaha, whose order was spoiled. Vihatan, who were defeated. Murarehe Nerdishkehe, but the order carriers of Murari, Krishna. Yasya, of whom? Vashe, under the subjugation. Jana Ayam, all the people of the world. Hare Krishna. Translation by His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. King Parikshit said, O my Lord, O Shukdev Goswami, Yamarāja is the controller of all living entities in terms of their religious and irreligious activities. But his order had been foiled when his servants, the Yamdutas, informed him of their defeat by the Vishnudutas, who had stopped them from arresting Ajamil. What did he reply? Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that although the statements of the Yamdutas were fully upheld by Vedic principles, the statements of the Vishnudutas were triumphant. This was confirmed by Yamarāja himself. So in continuation, the next verse, the translation is, O great sage, never before it has been heard anywhere that an order from Yamarāja has been baffled. Therefore, I think that people will have doubts about this that no one but you can eradicate. Since that is by firm conviction, kindly explain the reasons for these events. Hare Krishna. Om Jnana Tivrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangvam Langayate Girim Yat Kripatadam Vande Shri Gurum Dinataram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. So this is the way to make an inquiry. Parikshit Maharaj is making an inquiry of Shukdev Goswami, because Shukdev Goswami narrated an incident, in the ancient times of Ajamil, the history of Ajamil, which was completely contradictory to what he had heard in the previous verses and previous days, and also in his previous life. So he had this doubt, but he didn't present his doubt in a challenging manner. So this reminds of so many lessons from Srila Prabhupada's time as well, where when he was giving his class, there was a man, he got up and he said, "Have you seen God?" Srila Prabhupada said, "Yes." And then he got up again. "Have you seen God? Have you seen God?" And Srila Prabhupada at that time said, "I cannot see him because you are standing between me and the Lord." He was standing right in the middle, so you couldn't see the Srila Prabhupada couldn't see the deity. So deity is, not different from Lord Krishna. So when we see Shri Radha Mohan, they are Radha Krishna. And when we read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in this age, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam came, so Lord Krishna came in the form of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and also Namanamina. So again, the name and the Lord, they are not different. So when we chant the holy name of the Lord, just by raising our hand and chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We are actually praying to the Lord directly. So Lord's name is not different from him. He has, the name has been imbued with all his potencies. So in this Kali age, it's an easy way, just by chanting the name of the Lord in a prayerful mood, without any offenses, we can be assured that we'll be delivered and we'll have His blessings. Now, there are very important aspects that came in this chapter. First is how to do the inquiry. Goshti is discussion. So Goshti is having an inquiry-based, you're having a conversation. And Ishta Goshti is where you are glorifying. Goshti is discussion, but Ishta is the Supreme Lord. So when you are having discussions about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, His name, form, activities, pastimes, and so forth. So that's referred to as Ishta Goshti. And when somebody poses a challenging question, it becomes a Mushta Goshti. Right? So we should always keep the right attitude when we come for the class, that we should have Ishta Goshti or Sur Goshti and inquire about the topic for our understanding to clear any doubts that we may have. And also in this chapter, I was listening to one of the lectures of Srila Prabhupada on the buses, and he said that the speaker, when somebody challenges, is not liable to give a response because if the question has been answered in a challenging mood. No matter how you respond, the questioner, the person who is asking the question, inquirer, would not be satisfied with your answer because he has made his mind that he is right and you are wrong. So it's futile. So the speaker doesn't have to respond to a question. Doesn't mean that the speaker doesn't know. It's just that he doesn't have to respond because it has been asked with the wrong mood, with the wrong attitude, and so forth. And Srila Prabhupada, shows us with his own example. He used to go to like Boston University, Harvard, and so forth to give, as his preaching mission. So on one such occasion, as he was preaching and giving, lecture at a university, one of the students in the back, he got up and then challenging what he asked, "Why do you have this marking on your forehead?" And Srila Prabhupada immediately responds by saying, "Why do you wear that tie?" And he looked at his tie, couldn't understand why he wears the tie. So he sat down. And afterwards, when he met Srila Prabhupada told him that you ask a question, you should not ask in a challenging mode. And you should ask to gain knowledge. Because Tattva Darshana, as we hear in Bhagavad Gita, one who has seen the truth can reveal the truth to us. So that should be the attitude. And it's also, then there's a process being defined, which is also described by Yamarāja in this particular chapter. So that we'll be covering. So now let me cover the different lessons that we're covering today. First lesson is, of course, how to inquire from the speaker or from the spiritual master. It's not in a challenging mood, but in a mood to understand and clear the doubts. Second is, of course, Yamduta's inquiry that they made to Yamarāja. And they are curious as who is the supreme judge, because it's appeared like Yamarāja order has been foiled. Then the third lesson we'll be learning is Yamarāja's response, which is into 5 different subsections. Here, Yamarāja, he reveals Bhagavad Dharma. And then he reveals the secret and glories of devotional service and also identifies, how smart the Brahmanas and even the great learned Jnana Yogis, they are not able to fully understand the glories of the Lord and the glories of the devotional service, which starts with the chanting of the holy name and places a reference of 12 Mahajanas. And then he instructs, he wants his messengers, the Yamdutas. Yamdutas means the messengers of Yama. That never to approach a devotee, because the devotees are protected by the Lord. And then, who to approach? He gives that reference. That he instructs the Yamdutas to bring him non-devotees. Those who are, engaged in materialistic activities and do not surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So at the end of their life, they have to surrender to death, in short. And then, last but not the least, Yamarāja, he begs for forgiveness. To whom? Not to the Yamdutas, but to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He remembers that again. He identifies that the mistake done by the servant is also because of the master. So the master shares the responsibility and the mistake that the servant has made. And then the fourth chapter is, the fourth lesson is Śrīmad Goswami glorifies the chanting of the holy name. And that's when he also provides the reference, because this was the incident. The history of Ajamil was something that he had learned, not from Vyasadeva, but from Agastya Muni, when he was in Malaya Hills meditating and engaging in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Agastya Rishi, Sage Agastya, Rishi means sage. Sage Agastya had revealed it to Śrīmad Goswami, and Śrīmad Goswami narrated it in response to the initial question that Yamarāja had asked about, how can living entities be delivered from these hellish conditions, because Canto 5 was full of, the various kinds of hellish conditions as reactions to various sinful actions of the living entities. So continuing forward, in this chapter, in this very verse, the first verse, the second line talks about Kim tan api dharmaraja. So Yamarāja is referred to as Dharmaraj. So it's very important that he is the same personality who also gives benedictions based on the pious actions of the living entities. When living entities perform pious actions, they follow and worship some demigods, so they get the chance to reside on the planets of those demigods, as revealed by Srila Krishna in Devan Devayaja Yati in Bhagavad Gita. So those who worship the demigods go to the planet of demigods. But then it's very temporary duration. So after the duration is over, they have to come back to this world, to the lower planets. And if they perform sinful activities, they go to the lower planets where they receive punishment by the Yamadutas. So here we'll cover some of the blessings and glories, and then we'll continue with the chapter. First is, in the verse 22 it's revealed, devotional service beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. So here Yamarāja is revealing that humans have this capability to be able to chant and have that intelligence, so they have responsibilities as well. And devotional service is the ultimate religious principle beginning with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. In verse 31, Śrīmad Goswami glorifies. Śrīmad Goswami continued, my dear king, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is able to uproot even the reactions of the greatest sins. Therefore, the chanting of the Sankirtan movement is the most auspicious activity in the entire universe. Please try to understand this so that others will take it seriously. So this is the way of spiritual gain, how you practice. And chanting of the holy name has been stressed. That please, when Śrīmad Goswami is stressing this, he is requesting Parishad Maharaj to please pay attention to this seriously so that others, others refer to, other living entities like us, who will be able to understand that yes, it is a very important topic. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also reveals in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam eva kevalam, Kala nashteva 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 gatiranyatha. Chanting of the holy name, chanting of the holy name, chanting of the holy name is said 3 times to identify the stress, how important it is. It's the only way, chanting of the holy name is the only way to remove the effects of this Kali age. And it is the only way to remove the effects of the Kali age. And then in verse 32, Śrīmad Goswami continues, one who constantly hears and chants the holy name of the Lord and hears and chants about his activities can very easily attain the platform of pure devotional service, which can cleanse the heart, the dirt, from one's heart. One cannot achieve such purification merely by observing vows and performing Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. So it is not achievable by other processes, but just by chanting of the holy name, one can be bestowed by the mercy of the Lord, pure devotional service, where one's life would be blissful. And I do want to refer to another verse, which is in the conclusion verse in 12th canto. Shukdev Goswami reveals to Parikshit Maharaj. Tad eva ramyam ruchiram navam navam, tad eva shashvam manaso mahotsavam, tad eva shokarnava shoshiram ram, yaduttam shloka yasho anugriyate. Those words describing the glories of the all-famous personality of Godhead are attractive, relishable, and ever fresh. Indeed, such words are a perpetual festival for the mind, and they dry up the ocean of misery. So it is attractive, ramyam. It is relishable, ruchinam. One's ruchi increases. So one relishes the taste, the bliss. Navam navam, ever fresh. And for the mind it is manaso mahotsavam. Mahotsav refers to his festival. Mahotsav is great festival. Right? Maha Utsav. So there is constant, festivities that go on in the mind. So yesterday we were at Puri Prabhu's place and there was chanting of the holy name going on the whole evening. And everyone was jumping high and dancing. So it was truly a mahotsav happening. That people, not just the mind, their bodies were revealing, in that particular gathering. Such a wonderful is the blessing of the chanting of the holy name and discussions about the name, form, activities and pastimes of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada reveals in his writing that when Krishna Balaram temple was being constructed at that time, as part of the deity installation and so forth, he had to engage smarta brahmanas who live in Vrindavan to kind of perform great expensive ritualistic Vedic ceremonies. Just because if he had not performed them, the Vrindavan Vasis, the residents of Vrindavan and the Brahmanas, they would not have accepted Krishna Balaram Mandir to be authentic. While the devotees outside were doing Harinam, they were chanting and dancing, loudly, chanting out the Lord's name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And Srila Prabhupada reveals that his heart was actually there with the devotees. However, he had to sit through this as a host of the Vedic ritual, fire sacrifice, just for the sake of that the residents of Vrindavan and the Brahmanas, they would accept Krishna Balaram Mandir as authentic temple and the deity and so forth. And we also covered in the previous chapters as how just by chanting of the holy name, all defects in our ritualistic ceremony or performance of fire sacrifices are removed, because chanting of the holy name is all benefiting. So here King Parikshit inquires, and he refers to Yamarāja as Dharmaraj. And he's saying that his order has never been foiled. So in this case, his orders have been foiled by Vishnu Duttas and Yam Duttas, who are unable to get Ajamil back to Yamarāj, to Yamlok. They are very much angry because they have been overruled, right? Means again, Yamarāj, they thought he's the ultimate judge, but apparently it appears that there is someone even higher. So they have doubts. How could it be possible? And so, and Śrīmad Goswami reveals that yes, they were baffled and they were defeated. And so, they spoke to Yamarāj in an angry mood, not in a challenging mood. They spoke with Yamarāj in an angry mood, and it's very important to understand as they are finishing their inquiry They're inquiring about how many rulers are there, how many judges are there. It appears like they have just been, they had an encounter with 4, perfect personalities, Siddh personalities. And these personalities, for their attempt to take sinful Ajamil, because he chanted the name Narayan. And they immediately appeared and they said, do not fear, do not fear. And then they inquire. So they basically, their request is ending where they are inquiring. As soon as the sinful Ajamil uttered the name Narayan, these 4 beautiful men immediately appeared and assured him, saying, do not fear, do not fear. We wish to know about them from your Lordship. And the following statement is very important. If you think we are able to understand them, kindly describe who they are. So even though they are angry, even though they feel that Yamarāja's order has been foiled, even though they have this doubt that, there may be some other judges, in this material universe, giving their judgments on the deeds of the living entities, they have this doubt. And even though they even feel that, that even though they believe that Yamarāja is the supreme judge, it doesn't appear to be so, because at point when Srila Prabhupada in his lecture also describes as, they even felt like, oh Yamarāja, since your order has been filed, you have become, you are not as effective as we thought you are. So they even questioned that. But they said it in a very, they presented it not in a challenging way. Even though they were angry, they presented it in a manner of inquiring. That please reveal to us if you think that we can understand. And at this moment, Yamarāja is smiling, because when he goes to the heavenly planets and he has to give judgment over there, so, for people to go and live in higher heavenly planets, there's a lot of Ishtagoshti going on. But in Yamlok, there's hardly any opportunity. And he's smiling because he's happy that Yamdutas called out Lord's name, Narayan. And of course they called out Narayan, and even though they were angry and calling it out, that he called out Narayan, and immediately 4 beautiful personalities appeared, Yamarāja is thinking, oh, so wonderful that Yamdutas are chanting Lord's name. And they are inquiring about him. Like how good, and they had the opportunity to meet Vishnudutas. So this is a wonderful opportunity. And generally, in Yamlok, Yamdutas are mainly responsible for bringing the sinful living entities to Yamarāja for punishment, and especially only humans, because animal kingdom is also not under plant kingdom, animal kingdom, other living entities. In 8.4 million species, only 0.4 million species, 4 lakh human beings, kinds of human beings, 4 lakh kinds of human beings are under Yamarāja's jurisdiction. The other 8 million living, the entity forms in this material world are not under his jurisdiction. So as it goes on, Yamarāja is very happy, and he describes Bhāgavatam. He describes that, yes, he very simply is identified that, yes, I am not the Supreme, there is a Supreme Being, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he is the Supreme Being, and he has bound all of us, all the living entities, through his words of Vedas, words in Vedas. Shri Shri Gauranitai ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan ki Jai. Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki Jai. So, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he reveals, has bound all the living entities with his words in the Vedas. And he gives the analogy that just like a bull is controlled through a rope through its nose, through the nostril, just like in the bullock cart, the owner of the bull uses the rope through the nostril, and he can control the bull similarly we are controlled by the words in the Vedas. And the devotional service is the ultimate religious principle, and it starts with the chanting of the holy name. So now he's revealing the glories of the chanting of the holy name and how the devotional service begins. So with the chanting of the holy name, Bhagavad Dharma he is referring to. And to establish that, he identifies and he gives reference that even Jamini and other great Gyan Yogis and Vedantists, they are baffled because they do not know the secret. And now it's very important to identify that, okay, how does, Supreme Personality of Godhead is, making sure, there are different witnesses we covered in the previous chapter, but how does he, control and make sure that human living entities in this material world are guided as well? So he gives the analogy of eyes. Just like the eyes guide the senses, like the hands and legs to perform different action, right? We can read with our eyes, but we can lift the paper with our hands when they are guided by the eyes. So similarly, living entities, they are dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they are guided by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by His words, as the first soul in our heart, and of course, through various instructions and so forth. So we get the guidance. So we need the guidance to be able to perform our duties, the prescribed duties. And the topmost duty is Jivera Salupaya Krishnera Nityadas. So the topmost duty, the prescribed duty of Bhagavatam reveals that the living entity is an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishnera Tatastha Shakti Veda Veda Prakash. So that's Achitya Veda Veda Tattva's theory, where the living entity is the Tatastha Shakti, is the marginal entity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Veda Veda Prakash. And so this is simultaneously one and the same. It is not that the living entity merges into the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that's one. No, this is the misinterpretation or speculation of this particular verse. In truth, Krishna identifies him to Uddhava that there is no difference between you and me because we are engaged with the same mood, right? So when a devotee is constantly chanting, remembering, and serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also constantly thinking of the devotee. And he also says that he lives in the heart of the devotees. Similarly. So then, Yamarāja, as he is describing, he is giving the reference of the Mahajanas. He is saying, he refers to all the great, personalities, Surya, Chandra and others in the higher planetary systems. Even they are not the supreme controllers, and they are administrators of small departments, and the Supreme Personality of God is the supreme controller. So just like the eyes, guide other senses, and the senses don't have eyes. If they had eyes, they don't need the eyes to guide them, right? So similarly, these living entities are not independent. They are constantly dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the ones who are not taking the guidance from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not taking the protection, they take the shelter of Maya. Because the ones who take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they take the shelter of Yog Maya. Mahatmanastam Mahapada Devi Praktimashreya. So they take the shelter of Yog Maya, was an expansion of Srimati Radharani. So here, Yamarāja provides a reference of the Mahajanas. Swayambhur Narada Shambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu Prahlada Janako Bhishmo Bali Vaya Sakir Vaya. Swayambhur Narada Shambhu. Swayambhur is Lord Brahma. Then Narada, Devashi Narada, Bhagwan Narada referred to in the translation. Srila Prabhupada called him Bhagwan Narada. Shambhu, Lord Shiva. Kumara, the Chatur Kumaras. Kapilo Manu, Kapil Dev, the son of Gadama Muni and Devahuti, and Manu, Swayambhuva Manu is referred. Prahlad Maharaj, the son of Hiranyakashipu, and the grandfather of Bali Maharaj. Janak Maharaj, the father of Mother Sita, Sita Devi. And Bhishma Pitamaha. And Bali is Bali Maharaj, the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. Vyasakir, Vyam. And Vyasakir is none other than Shukdev Goswami. And Vyam is an I. And who's the I here? Who's saying this, revealing it to Yamdutas? It's Yamarāja. So Yamarāja is also one of the 12 mountains. Dvadeshante Vijnanimo Dharmam Bhagavata Bhataha Guhyam Vishuddham Durbodham Yam Gyatva Mashnate. So he's revealing the 12 Mahajanas who understand the religious principles, and then further he reveals to them that even we do not know the Supreme Personality of Godhead fully. So what you talk about the Jnanis and the Yogis, this is, Yamarāja himself is revealing that, nobody knows the Lord. And so it's also very interesting that sometimes when people, they try to understand who God is, Srila Prabhupada said, instead of trying to do that elaborate study of who Krishna is, just learn to love Krishna. Learn to pray to Him, ask for His mercy, and just love Him and serve Him with full faith, and He will reveal it to you. Right? Adashi Krishna namadi na bhave grahayam indriyaha sevon mukhehi jiva dosayam eva sprutyata. Our senses are very dull. They are not sufficient. We have defective senses. That's one of the 4 defects. And we don't have the ability with our senses to understand God. However, when we engage, the strongest sense, our jiva, our tongue, in the service of the Lord. And how do you engage? Of course, by chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And accepting His prasad. Prasad is mercy. And it's also referred to as the, once an offering of bhoga has been done, Lord, the remnants are called prasad. So that's is mercy, and we receive that. And we eat, and the tongue relishes the taste and gets purified. And so, with constant chanting and constant hearing and constant engaging in, having prasad, Lord reveals Himself to us. Very simple process. Srila Prabhupada, he said that Krishna consciousness is a perfect package for recreation. All you need to do is chant, dance, and eat prasadam. 24 hours a day. Nothing else you need to do. And that is all devotional service, right? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Achanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakya, Atmanivedanam. The 9 process of devotional service start with Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. So, hearing and chanting of the holy name. So here at that point, when, Yamarāja is revealing, and he says that the devotion service starts with the chanting of the holy name. And in the purport and in the lectures, Srila Prabhupada reveals that how people who are engaged in this material world, they are looking for happiness, but they don't get much of this happiness, and they are following the pravritti marg. So that is the materialistic way of performing pious activities to go to higher planetary systems. So they are just going to higher planets when they worship a specific demigod, thinking that that demigod is all in all. However, when they go to the demigods, planets, and they reside there for a little while, as the duration ends, they have to come back. So it's temporary. So it's like, he gives the analogy of a Ferris wheel that's going up and down. So the living entity has to go through this miseries of birth, death, old age, disease. While people are making arrangements for the basic necessities, which is, eat, sleep, mating, defending. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending, to make different arrangements to get better to eat, better to, nice comfortable sleep, better ways to defend yourself, better ways to entertain yourself. That is not the goal. However, people, they spend hours and hours, days, weeks and years in just trying to satisfy these 4 basic needs. And Srila Prabhupada reveals that when, dogs and cats, they have this, they're also trying to satisfy these basic needs. And the standard may be different, yes, the detail may be different. But the basic principle or the basic, the taste or the satisfaction they get is exactly the same as one, like if human beings, they are, in a family life, enjoying themselves, inside a house, so it's again, so the standard may be different. However, the enjoyment is same, and it's temporary, and leads to misery when that becomes all in all. That's what somebody is endeavoring for. They're frustrated in the end. It is not something that removes the void in their heart, because that void is only removed by the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And that's the Nivritti mark, the path of the devotional service. By taking to devotional service, where the translators, they have no interest in, trying to satisfy these 4 basic needs. They're already taken care of and already destined, at the time of your birth. They are focused on removing the true mysteries of this life, which is Janma Artha Jala Vyadhi. Janma is birth. Artha is economic. Janma Mrityu Jala Vyadhi. Mrityu is death. And Jala is old age. And Vyadhi is the diseases. So they want to find a solution and stop birth and death. So once there was a magician, he was visiting, and so devotees brought him, and Srila Prabhupada asked them to bring this magician. And so this magician, he was doing different kind of tricks. So he was producing a coin from behind Srila Prabhupada's ears, and so forth. So the devotees were feeling a little embarrassed that, the spiritual master is made fun of. But Srila Prabhupada was very nicely enjoying, like a child would enjoy. He was smiling and he was saying, and at the end he asked this magician, so can you remove the mysteries of birth and death? Can you stop that? So the magician, he said, no, I cannot do that. And Srila Prabhupada at that time said, yes, I can. And he started his preaching. So that is the true miseries in this material world, that we are taking birth and death again and again to different life forms. And we should take this opportunity of the human form of life to get out of this material universe. And how do you get out? By taking to devotional service. And Yamarāja himself is saying that begins by the chanting of the holy name. And this reminds me of an incident I read about. In 1972, Atalaya Rishidas, His Grace Atalaya Rishidas, he brought Bob Cohen and his wife to meet Srila Prabhupada. So Bob Cohen was later initiated, he received the name of Brahmati Das. So he and his wife, they were not initiated at this time, and as Atalaya Rishidas, His Grace Atalaya Rishidas introduced them to Srila Prabhupada, there were about 8 to 10 sannyasis in the room, and Srila Prabhupada was preaching. And his wife Barbara, she had never chanted the Lord's name. And even though the devotees would, when she would visit, she would only visit because her husband was visiting. And whenever a devotee said Hare Krishna, she replied with a hi. And everything had to be translated to her. So when Srila Prabhupada was visiting at that time, they were introduced, and Barbara was really impressed by the, Srila Prabhupada's lecture, and she was listening very intently. And at the end, she deliberately, holding her hand, she said, Hare Krishna. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada responded, Jai. Apparently he knew, to her it appeared, that she had never chanted Hare Krishna, and now this is glorious. Srila Prabhupada is saying that you have chanted the holy name of the Lord, so he was very happy. Previously he had asked her, that, so you are interested in Krishna consciousness. She didn't respond much. But after listening to him, her heart melted, and she took to the devotional service. And it begins with the chanting of the holy name, just by raising her hand and chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. So, here Yamarāja has revealed, the glories of the chanting of the holy name, as how it leads to the beginning of devotional service. And then Yamarāja at this point is folding his hands, and on behalf of his Yamdutas, the messengers of his messengers, he is realizing that the mistake done by the servant is the mistake of the master as well. And he folds his hand and he is asking for forgiveness from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That, oh Lord Shri Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, please forgive me and my messengers, because apparently we have done a great fault in trying to take a great devotee like Ajamil. And so he's asking for forgiveness from his heart. And then after asking for forgiveness, he reveals to Yamdutas that they should never approach a devotee, because the devotees are constantly protected by the club and the chakra of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, called Mudduki club. Yeah. And then chakra, Sudarshan chakra. So when he reveals that, of course, and Parikshit Maharaj is hearing Shukdev Goswami narrating this incident further, Parikshit Maharaj would be, of course, reminded of that in the womb of his mother, he was in his mother's womb, he was protected when Ashwatthama had, attacked with Brahmastra, Lord Krishna, he had Sudarshan Chakra cover the womb from outside. So Sudarshan Chakra was warding off the effect of Brahmastra from outside. And Lord Krishna himself was rotating Kamadaki club to ward off any effects from inside the womb. And that's where Parikshit Maharaj saw Lord Shri Krishna in the womb of his mother, and that's why his name is Parikshit, examiner. Because every personality he met in, after he took birth, he was trying to compare that person, examine the characteristic of each person he met from the personality he saw in the womb of his mother. So this is very assuring that yes, Parikshit Maharaj is feeling that yes, the devotees are constantly protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Krishna reveals in Bhagavad Gita, Kampiya prati janihi name bhakta pranshati, that, O Arjuna, declare it boldly that my devotee shall never perish. So now Yamarāja is warned to Yamdutas that never approach a devotee of the Lord, because they are constantly protected. Now the Yamdutas may have a question, who to approach? So at that point Yamarāja says, approach those people who don't chant the holy name of the Lord, whose heads do not go down at the lotus feet, of the Lord. So in front of deities, I think you go down your hand willingly in a playful mood, or at the time of death, you will have to go down your head nevertheless. And then who do not remember the lotus feet of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada very nicely reveals, that is, how do you remember the lotus feet? So when we, in the beginning of the class, we chant, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are, remembering the lotus feet of the Lord. We are reciting these prayers when we do Bhagavad Gita, lessons. At that time, we say Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Vishtam Sthapitam Yamaputale and so forth. So again, that's also remembering the lotus feet of the Lord in the disciplic succession. Yamarāja reveals that there are 4 sampradayas. So of course, we should understand this. We are in the Brahma Sampradaya, coming from Lord Brahma. Then there is Rudra Sampradaya coming from Lord Shiva. And there is Chatur Kumaras, Kumar Sampradaya coming from Chatur Kumaras. And then Shri Sampradaya coming from Goddess Lakshmi. And even though Goddess Lakshmi is not referred to as one of the 12 Mahajanas in this world, we should be very respectful towards her, as actually, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Taradapi Shadichana Tarurapi Sahishuna Amanina Manadira Skitana Sadahari. So we should be humbler than the grass, more tolerant than the tree, and we should give respect to everyone, not offend anyone, basically. And always chant the holy name of the Lord. So Yamarāja is revealing to him, Yamdutas, the messengers, his messengers, the messengers of death, should bring living entities, those human beings, in the human form, at the end of their life. He should bring those living entities who have not chanted the name of the Lord, nor bowed down their heads in front of the Lord, and do not remember the Lord even once. And so here, and then he is considering himself and his messengers as offenders. He asks for forgiveness. And at that time, we heard covered in the blessings earlier, Shukdev Goswami requests Parikshit Maharaj to hear very seriously so that others may take this lesson. And he reveals that glories of the chanting of the holy name can remove, in summary, the greatest sins. While we should not be chanting, thinking that, I'm removing this sin so my slate is clean and I can continue to perform sin again. No. We should constantly engage in devotional service, and so over a period of time, our hearts will be cleansed of any impurities. So it's a very simple process, and we should all take to this process attentively, chanting the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Questions or comments? Katra Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Kori Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Go Premanande, Hare Hare.